So there's a subreddit called NoFap, and it's this
familiar.
like whole movement for like people to not masturbate anymore, and it's to combat porn addiction. And this subreddit has 1.2 million subscribers. Do you think there's a porn addiction epidemic?
I think that I find the term porn addiction
Yeah.
really funny. I think kind of earlier in my career as somebody that cares about this stuff and likes porn, I kind of took issue with the phrase porn addiction or the term porn addiction. And I was like, well, it's not like, medically addictive, that kind of thing. But but it is obviously, it's very clear that people have a challenging relationship with porn.
Yeah.
And people, struggle with consuming pornography. But I also think it's almost frustrating when it's viewed through the same lens as a drug addiction, because I almost don't think it's going far enough where it's like, okay, well, why do we have this difficult relationship with pornography? And, how can we actually kind of meet people where they're at and have a better understanding of where that's coming from, instead of just being like, well, porn is bad and that's that. It is not true. It's a medium, it's a genre like any other. And it's a genre that is emotionally charged, it's physically charged, and people rely on it for, dopamine release, etc., which is similar to other things that people can have a problematic relationship with, like processed food or what have you. But
RFK is going to get rid of processed food and then porn next.
Oh, devastating.
Yeah.
My two favorite things. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that people, like, as I said, I think through this kind of hysteria around pornography, this hysteria around sexuality, it's given it so much power, I think, that it has resulted in people just not knowing how to engage with pornography or engage with sexual media or their own sexualities. And I think it's so interesting that like even NoFap and porn addiction is being like kind of directly applied to each other, because obviously you can masturbate without pornography. You don't need porn to masturbate, one would think.
But it's so difficult, like, especially
just use your imagination, your fantasy.
Yeah,
we're
get
just, like,
lost in your rich
constantly
internal
inundated
world.
with so much
Microdose
color and so much stimuli. Like,
Yeah.
It's such a slippery slope. It's
so
very
slippery, Brian. It's very slippery.
No, I understand what you mean, like, to have those divisions and those boundaries of like, this is a healthy way to consume, but I just believe you're not going to ever outsmart an algorithm. Like, these engineers are going to hack your brain no matter how hard you try. And so, I don't know, I think it's overall like a net positive to like have NoFap as a resource for people.
So you're telling us that you're on NoFap.
Sure.
What day are you on?
No, I mean, I was like you, where I used to scoff at the idea of like porn addiction. I'm like, what? This is ludicrous. This isn't heroin. This isn't like cocaine. This isn't like a hard drug. But yeah, I can easily, like, I've noticed in myself where there were periods in my life where I was like using it like a drug, of like, oh, I got some free time. Let me just get a quick little dopamine bump here and like throw up some Pornhub. Yeah.
I guess the addiction element that makes sense to me is that like most people regret doing it. No one like does it and like that was a good use of my time. Or I think most people.
Okay.
Maybe I'm speaking in generalization, but maybe you are when you're like, oh, I like the camera angles where you're like,
Yeah, exactly. We're coming at it
the
from
mise en
different...
scène in this one was really
like, I know that house.
really creative. Yeah. But I think, similar to people who like would do a hard drug or like whatever, eat a whole bag of Doritos or something, these other addictions, there is like a guilt, and maybe even similar to like when you spend so much time on TikTok, even you're like, oh, that didn't really feel good. Like if I had my like way and power and self-control, I probably wouldn't have spent an hour watching like the medieval fisting video, even though now that I'm saying it, that sounds enticing.
I think that there's obviously the post-nut clarity or the post-nut crash is well documented. But I also think that it's something where I completely agree that I think a lot of people feel shame and regret kind of after they've finished consuming pornography, but and sort of because I agree with that, I wish that was almost analyzed a little bit further, or like yes, that's true, and what? Because I also think that that's because we have applied so much shame into sexuality and into pornography as a medium, as an activity, whereas, you know, like the term guilty pleasure is so, I think, complicated and weird, but watching pornography is not inherently bad, you know, like it's not something like if you're eating a whole bag of Doritos and you've upset your stomach and you have a stomach ache, that makes sense. Like, you feel bad because you have a stomach ache. But if you're watching porn and you're enjoying it, you have a good time, you finish, and then you're having this regret. Well, why? Like, what's hurting? Where's that coming from? Is I think what I want people to start unpacking. Because I don't think that people should have to feel shame after watching pornography. I think that's too bad. I think porn is fun. Ultimately, that's why people watch it. That's why I like porn, is because it's fun.
Is the shame different for men and women?
I feel like it's tough, because I do think that women feel, generally in my conversations with women that aren't in the adult industry, women feel a bit of, I think, defensive-ness around pornography, or they don't feel like pornography is for them, and in many ways they feel like it's against them. So I do feel like in conversations with women where they do feel stressed about their pornography consumption, that has a lot to do with it, of being like, I've, you know, betrayed feminism, or I've betrayed my fellow woman, or, you know, I don't look like these people, or you know, the analysis, I think, starts to happen. And then with men, I find it's just sort of a shame around the concept of pornography generally, and like being like a sexual being, and masturbating kind of at large. I also think that women tend to, and this is a generalization, but tend to be a little bit pickier with pornography, which
men are like, this will do. This is right now.
A little bit.
I mean, there's like a proliferation of alternative like porn avenues that are available that are catered more towards women, like audio-based porn and literature-based porn.
Sally Rooney books.
Whereas like for men, it's like Pornhub, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Like, there you have it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it is something where if anybody listening is experiencing shame when they consume pornography, I personally think that an avenue kind of out of that is being more invested in what you're consuming, and actually caring about what you're consuming, and caring about also the people that are making it, where, you know, if you're just watching something random and then you feel like crap because you're like, what the fuck have I been doing?
Right.
It I believe feels a lot better to be like, oh, like I kind of know who this person is. I follow them on X now, or Twitter.
Sure.
You know, I know this studio, they're doing this. I saw them do this kind of behind the scenes content.
6th, you know, they stormed the Capitol.
I know a lot about them. This is their social insurance number. But yeah, just like having a little bit more investment into what you're consuming, and also knowing kind of the process behind it, knowing, like, feeling good about what you're watching, paying for it is a big part of this, where actually just investing in what you're consuming, which I think is so true of so many different industries, where, you know, it feels like crap to buy something random online, and then it arrives and it doesn't even really fit you, and you're like, why did I spend that money? I'm not even going to wear this. I don't know where it came from, etc. But if you are a fan of a designer and you research them, you research the product, you buy it, you're like, I know where this came from. I know that this person designed it. I feel great in it. It's just a totally different experience.
So you just like watch a production and you're like, the carbon emissions on this set is insane. Like, I can't watch this anymore.
Exactly.
No, but this is all assuming that This comes from a place, like, this comes from an assumption that you are like very attuned with yourself and you want to be like an ethical consumer of porn. But like we've established before, like porn, it's like, you know it when you see it. It's very nebulous, very slippery. And I think our desires can be described as such as well. So I feel like a lot of shame is also tied to where maybe like you can't, like, I'm sure there's plenty of fetishes that exist for the reason like people don't understand why they're into it, and they don't like that they are into X, Y, or Z.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like that's also such a shame, because that's also, I think, one of the most fun elements of pornography is that you get this glimpse into what people really want, because it's such a private activity, and it is just sort of like a mirror into people's desires that they might not share otherwise. But the algorithm doesn't lie. If it's at the top, it's at the top for a reason.
Okay, that was Middlebrow.